Okay, here we go. You're pulling it out. Checking it.
Big moment.
This is a very big moment, Dad.
Okay, here's where we left off last time, and it's been a while, sorry about that. I've been trying to figure out how to do this video since at this point in the build, I had stopped recording a lot of the details just to get the work done so we could use it for camping. So I've been trying to figure out how to fill in those gaps to actually show the whole thing. So I'll do the best I can. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to give any answers that I can. At this point in the build, we still have to get the roof mounted and everything covered in resin and fiberglass cloth where necessary. The hatches sealed up, painted, and put on. Hinges, locks, and eventually the doors, windows, the trailer lights, and all the associated wiring. Fill some gaps. And finally the roof rack for the rooftop tent. Alright, so the top is cut. Now, I've got to do a lot of sanding, trimming up a couple edges. Flush router the edges of the top. Should be pretty flat. Moving on. All right, we're moving along. Hadn't had time to film. It's all pretty much cut and sanded, mounting all the same stuff that's been being recorded, but I got the hatch, use some Moride rear Jeep doors, hinges. Had to alter them a little bit, but still not done. I'm gonna alter up here so that I can get even more than 90 open. So here's those hinges as they sit now. I ground the top off of each one so that it was able to open up more than 90 degrees. Have them mounted, blacked out all the hardware. And the actual hatch you're looking at here was a frame covered in fiberglass. It's super light, straight. It worked out a lot better. That comes in down the road after we get back from our initial camping trip. But yeah, this is how the hinges look at now. For the hatch, I've got to straighten the wood on the hatch and maybe even build another hatch out of just some 1x material for lighter. But for now, that one is coming along. Everything's cut. Got the front hatches in right here. Everything sanded. And hardware on the way. So now it's a lot of filler. Gotta fill all these little pocket holes. They sell a silica powder you mix with the epoxy resin to come up with a paste that you can use to fill the holes, and it hardens. Then you can cover it with a final layer of epoxy. I tried to do it with some sawdust and it just wasn't working out, so I had to order the silica powder, and stuff works great. Along the top, I ordered a large sheet of black fabric that I use to epoxy over the roof and around the edges along the sides, front, and back, and any joints in the plywood. For some reason, I was thinking that the epoxy and fiberglass could be the final coat, not remembering that will yellow over time and paint would have been better. Along the bottom, and then start fiberglassing the outside. So, running out of time. All right, here we are a few days before Thanksgiving, trying to get it usable just for that trip. So I'm trying not to have to do anything twice when I come back, but still make it usable. So the top is covered and epoxied. The sides, I ran out. That comes in Sunday. Still have to put the doors in. So the doors and windows mount in a very similar way, and it's very straightforward. I got them from Vintage Technologies, and so far they're great. You mount them using butyl tape on the exterior side in between the wall, and the door has screws on the outside that hold it in place. Each door and window has a bezel that fits on the inside, and the window has screws that go through the bezel that hold the window in place. The installation is very straightforward, and so far no leaks, and they've been working great. Again, I purchased them from Vintage Technologies, and they supplied all the hardware I need, even the butyl tape. Got the hatch. They're supposed to be covered the same as the top, as well as the front hatches. Just painted them black for now. Front hatches are actually have the first coat of fiberglass. The back does not. Still have to alter the hinges. Hardware's on the way. Hopefully. And so, still a ton to do when I get back, but some sort of strip across there to clean up that edge. Couldn't figure out a better way to do it. And there's the back hatch, front hatches, and then the front is ready for its Raptor liner, but I need to fiberglass that gap right there. So do you see this lip right here running down the front of the camper? Before this had the Raptor liner and anything on it, when it was just the wood, the front was pushed back a little bit. So I used epoxy resin and silica filler to basically kind of bondo the front of that and cover that gap. And I had to do that in a few places around the side of the trailer, and in some of the clips you'll see the white along the bottom of the trailer. That's what that was, the silica filler. Once it cured, in 3 days, 4 days later, it started turning white. So I did that initially, and we camped with it for Thanksgiving. And then it was time to come back and clean it up after we got back from Thanksgiving. And yeah, a little more fiberglass on this side, inside the doors, inside all the other edges. I'd like to get that done. So anyway, moving on. So that leaves the lights. I did the bare minimum for this initial trip, just getting the required lights and trailer connections wired up. So marker lights on the side, amber in the front, red in the back, brake lights and tail lights on the rear. Since this is wider than 80 inches wide, the trailer itself, also had to have the center marker lights, the 3 red lights across the top on the back right there. I ran the lights just in a way to keep them out of our way for this trip, knowing that I was going to come back, have to cut all that wire out and redo it all correctly when I start adding interior lights, a fuse box, power, and other things. So this was just to get us on the road and being able to use it for this initial Thanksgiving trip, which we had a blast on. Next, we need to be able to close and lock the front locker latches and the rear hatch on the back. So I got pretty basic hinges on the front, and I found what I could for locks. Using a slam latch for the 2 front lockers that I had to kind of use some aluminum make work, and then more of like a filing cabinet lock as a secondary lock on the bottom. Both work pretty well. That secondary lock might have to change in the future, but so far they've been running strong. On the rear, I used these marine hinges for decks, and had to kind of fashion a way for them to lock the hatch closed. So I used this aluminum channel here that I kind of had to notch out in pieces, and it fits in these slots, another piece of aluminum channel that I mounted on the inside of the rear garage. As long as I keep that arc for that piece of aluminum free, it works great. Lastly, I needed a roof rack. I had to have that rooftop tent mounted so the kids had somewhere to sleep. So I used a 1x3 1/8" steel and just welded it to some angles I made out of some 1/4" material. Welded all that together and bolted it through to the inside using the same caulk. I forgot the name of it as I sit here now, but in the bolt holes to keep it watertight. again, it's working great. It's not the original design I wanted. I wanted something a little fancier and still plan on taking all this off and redoing it the way I wanted originally. That's something a little more modular to work better with that roof fan, the vent fan. But everything's working now, and as time permits, hopefully I'll be able to get to it one day. This is just looking at the inside, going across the wall where everything's bolted. You can also see how the roof is mounted on there, and I've got the joist kind of running across. Everything's glued and screwed, slathered in epoxy, and finally covered with spar urethane. So that's it. That gets us to our first camping trip. It's usable, the rooftop tent's mounted, it's street legal, and we had a great time. Since then, as we got back, I had to actually pull the entire box off the trailer, do a whole lot of rework and clean it back up. But I'll try to show that in a different video. You saw some of the bits and pieces here and there with the cooler in the front locker and the vent fan that's not on there now, but that gets us to this point. And thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. If you haven't seen the rest of the build, I'll link it in the description below. Feel free to just kind of look through. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you on the next build.